We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides.
The numbers are in and they don't bode well for President Joe Biden. This most precipitous fall in popularity, not only for his job approval, but for his handling of just about every issue. And yet, we have 3 long years ahead. Well, to paint a picture of what that particular dark winter might look like, we're joined by longtime host of this here Liberty Nation Radio and senior political analyst for LibertyNation.com, Mr. Tim Donner. Welcome back, Tim.
Always a pleasure, Mark.
Now, I have to say, I'm stunned by how this turned around so quickly. Us political pundits, we knew it would be bad, but I think we're experiencing a case of political whiplash here. How bad is it for President Biden?
Well, it sounds like you're setting me up for a Johnny Carson. How bad is it? Late night talk show. Well, it's so bad, Mark, that Joe Biden may not even be aware of it, which is a problem that's only going to get worse because his cognitive decline becomes more obvious with each passing day. And unfortunately, the physical ills, the inability to, shall we say, control his bodily functions is now even an issue. So it has fallen apart for this presidency faster than I even imagined. And I imagined it would fall apart pretty fast because he seems not at all in control of what's going on in his administration. He's unable to navigate a 50-50 Senate. He's unable to navigate a narrow majority in the House. And I think his biggest problem, just in terms of politically, Mark, is that he sided with the progressives after being elected as a moderate. So he's picked the wrong horse, and it's obvious, even with this reconciliation bill that's eventually going to pass, it's not going to be anything near what he had hoped in his somehow utopian thought that Americans were going to embrace socialism. They're not.
Yeah, I think one of the things that a lot of people missed was in a fairly recent TV appearance, he was explaining that, and I quote, "I'm a capitalist." Now, a capitalist, as we know, that's a term used by the people who oppose capitalism.
Yes.
Rather, he should, if he actually meant it, he should have said, "I'm a free marketeer," or "I believe in the free market." So I think that actually, as you point out, the side that he sided with, the progressives, I think they took that as a challenge and are planning on crucifying him for.
Well, he gave them the rope. I mean, he encouraged them. He encouraged them to hold out and pass the bipartisan infrastructure bill. He should have pushed them to pass it before the 2021 election. Who passes a bill, a popular bill, a bipartisan bill, 1 day or 2 days after an election? That is political malpractice to a stunning degree. And a lot of it is Biden's responsibility because he's the party leader. And even if he's a doddering old fool, like a lot of us think he is the president. And he's the one that's got to make it happen. And he's just not doing it.
Yeah, it's. I guess a lot of the moderates, they're campaigning more on issues, planning to campaign more on issues going into 2022 rather than relying on "we are Democrats, please re-elect us." So, what do the numbers tell us about those issues? I mean, it's notable in the aftermath of the election that you had the Fourth Estate allies telling the public that the adults were back in charge. That's what the legacy media thinks. But what do the American people think?
Well, there was a very revealing poll from Harris, old-time pollster. Gallup and Harris are probably the 2 oldest pollsters in the country. But the interesting part of it was not so much Biden's numbers now, because they're all underwater. The interesting thing was the contrast to Donald Trump's numbers in his last month in office. So remember that Trump had lost the election. His behavior had been extremely controversial. We had January 6th, which has been still being investigated. It was a horror show. And yet, you look at the numbers across the board comparing Trump in his last waning days of his presidency to Biden, and they're way up from where Biden stands now. 16 points lower is Biden on the economy. He is 14 points lower on job creation. I'm reading these off so I get them correct. He's 13 points lower on foreign affairs, 16 points lower on fighting terrorism, 17 points lower on immigration. And here's the part, Mark, that's really shocking. He's 7 points lower on the very thing that Biden apologists said was the reason to put him in for the bumbling, incompetent Donald Trump, was his competence. The fact that he's been a politician for 50 years and he's 7 points lower on the single issue, which you would think most people that voted for Biden voted on. And he's 7 points down there. So it's across the board a disaster. And I don't know, next time we see Donald Trump saying, miss me yet? Apparently, the voters answering these polls miss his presidency, if not his person.
Yeah, there's been much analysis given in the wake of the stunning Virginia defeat, and to a lesser extent on the rising red tide in New Jersey. Now, do you think that, I mean, this a lot of people are calling this like a semi-red wave or the burgeoning start of a red wave. Now, do you think that Joe Biden is the illness that's causing this, or is he just a symptom of a larger problem within the Washington, D.C. swamp?
Well, I think the radicals were allowed to run loose in this party in 2020. And I think because they won the election, they somehow thought that people want socialism and they don't object to the kind of insurrection, the real insurrection that we saw in the summer of 2020 when one city after another was taken over by radical Antifa activists and the like. They have gone forward somehow assuming that because Trump was not reelected, that means the country wants the opposite of Trump, which is pure, unadulterated socialism. Okay, European style more than Venezuelan style, but socialism nonetheless. They want it to be another Western Europe. That's what they want. So the fundamental premise that they're operating on is flawed, which is that the country is either center left or flat out left. And that just isn't true. The country is center right. And they're not comfortable with the radicals who seem to have taken charge of the Democratic Party. Even if AOC and the Progressive Caucus appear to be a minority, they are acting and they're being treated as if they're a majority. And you cannot tell me that more than 15, maybe 20% of most of the American people are comfortable with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez being in a position of power or authority. So I think it's a fundamental problem. And Biden's problem is that he's the best that the Democratic Party could do. And well, everybody,
That leads me nicely on to my final question for you, Tim. Now, you and I, we've discussed this before off camera, but it seems to me that Democrats, they're scrambling for a viable 2024 contender. Now, Kamala Harris is shockingly even more unpopular than her boss. I believe it's 28% approval rating. So who's left? Who will be on the Democrat 2024 ticket? And don't tell me it's Republican Adam Kinzinger.
Well, it could be.
Could be.
I mean, because look, they look through the field of all Democrats in the entire country, including the 29 who announced for the presidency in 2020. And the best they could come up with was Joe Biden, who 10 months into his presidency is at 38% approval, 3 separate polls, he's in the 30s. And Kamala Harris, who's 10 points lower than that. And all the other prospective Democrats, frankly, either disgraced themselves or gave a not ready for primetime performance in 2020, which lowers the number of potential candidates even that much further. I'll just say, Mark, if I had to guess, to me, the front runner in 2024 is going to be Gavin Newsom, because I believe he was strengthened by the recall effort in California, which he fended off easily. And I think in the tradition of that which does not kill me makes me stronger, I think Newsom, he's attractive, he's articulate, he's been wanting the presidency from the moment he entered public life. If I had to guess right now, I'm going with Gavin Newsom.
Tim Donner, thank you ever so much.
Always a pleasure, Mark.
Lawsuits aplenty against Travis Scott and the Astro World Music Festival. What happened and how will it play out in the courts? We'll be right back. We dismiss history at our peril.
Liberty Nation Radio with Mark Angelides. Who are we? We are Americans that believe in liberty. We are a project of the nonprofit One Generation Away. We are patriots who apply the founding principles to the issues of today.
And they keep moving the goalposts on us.
We are educators and commentators who love America and the Constitution. Who are we? We are Liberty Nation.